So Pat Quinn's retiring.
The skipper, horrible person. No one likes him. Oh, are you talking about Pat Quinn?
Number one, I can't believe he's been there 37 years. That's just amazing.
Coach Quinn's given so much to the university. I mean, 37 years, my goodness.
You there 37 years, man.
37 years at Ball State means a good portion of my life.
When I think of Ball State athletics, I think of Pat Quinn and the family.
Well, you have to understand that I've known Pat Quinn since 1977. Jimmy Carter had been inaugurated 2 months before. I met Pat when he was 31 years old. He had a big afro. He drove a yellow Toyota Celica, and he came to our first American Legion baseball meeting in an Oakland A's uniform.
In 1995, Pat Quinn stepped down as Ball State's winningest baseball coach. And 24 years later, 37 total, he retired this June from athletics administration.
What do I think of when you say Pat Quinn? I mean, just the consummate professional.
He's got that persona that if you don't know him, he walks in the room and it's like, well, okay, this guy's somebody.
He's very passionate.
Intense.
Intensity.
I picture him laying on the ground on third base telling a guy to slide.
On that front step, I just glaring out. When he had that pursed lips look and the arms were crossed.
He was tough, but I respected it. I wanted somebody like that.
No nonsense, no BS approach in terms of what right looked like and what wrong looked like.
And it worked out perfectly because we had an extremely intense group of players
who learned very quickly the right way of doing things.
Our shortstop had his sunglasses on the back of his hat instead of wearing them. He lost the ball in the sun.
The guy booted the ball and he looked at his glove as it ran into left field. Well, PQ busts a trot out there to shortstop, takes the guy's glove, looks it up and down, looks at it, runs it over to Coach McMitchen, flips it at him, says, "You see anything wrong with the glove?"
This is not a blank flipping circus. We are playing baseball here. And I still instill that in my boys. They never wore their hats on backwards. And I said, you respect the game.
When I was in high school, we didn't have no baseball plays. We got double steals and, things like that when I got to Ball State. So I had to understand the lingo.
For us to get a playbook in high school about baseball and bunt coverages and first and third situations and signals and how we're going to take infield and how we're going to do this. And yeah, he was really meticulous about that.
I think that was one of the first things that I learned was how to compete. Don't accept losing. We've got to get better every day. We've got to go and compete. We can play with anybody.
You win the right way and you lose the right way. And when other teams wouldn't win the right way or would do things, there were some brawls that we had.
After all, the Quinn era was literally titled Big Bats and Brawls.
They fought a lot. They even fought during an alumni game.
I think every year we fought Bowling Green. Every single year.
Getting close to being dark and BG was trying to make outs on purpose in order to get the game over. And as a freshman catcher, I was a little overzealous maybe in my tag, and Coach Quinn taught me to tag firmly.
And I remember being on the ground in the middle of it, and the guy who I graduated with here, Dave Oliverio, is on top of me, hitting me until I said to him, "Dave, it's me." And he goes, "Okay, fine." Rolled over and started beating on the other guy.
There were police lining the field for one of our final games. It might have been the game I pitched, I can't remember. The fundamentals of baseball in the 1980s was retaliation, brushback pitch, hard tags, going to second base hard, taking people out. That's fundamental baseball. That's what Quinn taught.
And as a result, yeah, there were some brawls from time to time. And I'm not saying that's good, I'm just saying that's the way it was.
And through it, the skipper almost always had your back, especially when it came to the men in blue.
My love affair with umpires.
PQ just had this way of getting in an umpire's face and not really letting him talk a whole lot.
We were playing Taylor University, and I'll never forget it. And it's a midweek game, and the umpires was really bad for Taylor. So it was kind of in our favor. And Coach Quinn came out and argued with the umpire in favor of Taylor and got kicked out of the game arguing for the opponent. I've never seen it happen, and it was awesome. It was, you don't, as a player, you don't know what's going on. I'm like, man, he's really arguing for the other team.
Every player appreciates that the coach will go to war with you. So, as a player, we loved it.
Something happened where I said something to the home plate umpire. Didn't show him up. No one else would have heard it. And he took his mask off and started walking down to me saying, "What did you just say?" I started walking towards him and I said, "Oh, sure, here you come. My manager's been on you for 9 innings and you don't have a damn word to say to him. But I say one thing and now you're emptying it out, walking towards me in the box." And he dumped me right then. He threw me out. 7 minutes later, the door slams open and slams shut. And I look down and there's Pat. And he looks up at me and he points and he says, "Next time you got something to say to a frickin' ump, leave me out of it, because 3 pitches in, he dumped me too."
Sometimes he might get thrown out for a purpose, for the team. Or there's sometimes he used to yell at other people, but I know he's yelling at me. You just gotta understand that.
Among the other things understood at Ball State, playing came with a price. All Cardinals were part students, yes, and part athletes, but also part grounds crew.
If you were going to bring a recruit on campus, I didn't have a locker room, I didn't have a lot of scholarships, I had good academic programs, I didn't have an indoor facility. So what I had to do is, what do I have that I can make good? And the field was the thing.
You didn't want to touch that field, because if you touched it, you might get yelled at, because it was his
baby. I mean, he probably took care of that more than in his house yard. But Ball State was, back in 1990, it was the premier field in central Indiana or in the U.S.
He'd give us passes to get out of school last period to go work on the field, get it ready for practice.
He might cut practice short 30 minutes to make sure everybody had their field maintenance done, and we were fixing the lips and getting the rocks off the field.
You get an appreciation for a surface like that, and it's like, when you're out there doing it, you're young and you're cocky, you're thinking, man, we ain't got a grounds crew or somebody come out here.
That was really hard work. Once again, couldn't complain. Pat was there with me doing it.
I put a lot of time into it, and I can tell you that if you talk to my wife and kids right now, they could tell you a couple times where after church on Sunday, they'd change their clothes and they'd be out here helping to line or edge the field.
Just to see all the care that he took for the field, it made us care for it, a lot more.
A lot of teams do that. They take care of the field, but he was like, here's why we're doing it, here's how we're doing it.
The field was a way to present to the team, I care a lot. Now I need you to care about these things. I'll get the best facility I can for you, but you're gonna have to put a lot forward too.
But it wasn't just the field. That was the tip of the spear.
The one thing about PQ, he was always the best dressed.
Great ties, he looked like my dad.
Yeah, they wore stirrups, they wore the right stirrups. They had sanitaries, they had the right sanitaries. They had New Era hats, they had the right hats. He never cut corners with that kind of stuff.
Your shoes had to be shined before every game, and if they weren't, you heard about it. Your glove was clean.
And so we had a guy named Bobby Couch, who was a senior, so it was my junior year, 78. So he had a pen that had invisible ink, or the ink that would disappear. You'd spill it, and so I'm sitting behind Coach, and here comes Bobby. We had this all set up. I said, "Hey, ask Coach to sign this paper for you, and then squirt that ink on his pants and see what happens." And so here comes Bobby from the back of the bus. Hey, Coach, can you sign this paper, blah, blah, and then he squirted that ink on his pants. And Pat jumped up. I mean, I'd never seen him get so mad.
And that was how Bobby Couch died. Not really. But it went about as well as you would expect.
I don't think he thought it was funny at the time, but I don't think Bobby Couch ever played the rest of the season.
Not because PQ didn't care, quite the opposite. It's because he did.
If you screwed up, you were going to hear about it in no uncertain terms. I mean, he believed in challenging his players.
You can say, I want things done this way, and you can motivate towards that direction. But eventually you have to inspire. And the very best coaches and teachers, they inspire.
People have different impact on people as they go through life, and what stands out for me with Pat is just how genuine it is.
He wanted you to be better than what you thought you were.
I can assure you, I was not easy. I'm thankful for his patience and belief that I would eventually develop and turn into a good ball player for him.
He wanted them to be the best version of themselves and get a chance to maybe pursue a dream of professional baseball, but also to graduate become young men.
When you go to school, you're a young kid, you know, he really is your father figure when you're away from, you know, your home and you're on campus.
Besides my real dad, he was my second dad, and I look up to him as a dad every time I see him.
He, you know, took a chance on me playing for college baseball, and you know, I'm here today because of him. I mean, I really got into, you know, coaching, watching him.
To believe, he had us believing that we were better than we were individually, but then turn around and play hard-nosed, fundamental baseball as a team. That's why we were upsetting people.
They upset a lot of people. Notre Dame, Clemson, Georgia, Kentucky, Florida State.
We went down and we were able to actually prove to ourselves that we could compete against the top teams in the country.
What I remember is being on the mound and pitching against Hall of Famers.
You're going to play a team, and usually Florida State was #1 in the nation when we went down to play. So you're going down to play a storied program.
It was quite an experience, but it certainly prepared you for anything else. There was going to be nothing more difficult throughout the season.
We could have had a much better record and played simple teams, but boy, we went up against the Georgia Techs, #1, 15-0 Florida State, and split with them.
If you write it on a piece of paper, you know, you'd be like, I don't know if that could happen.
I mean, no, that spring trip was just unbelievable.
Ball State's name was made, even with those that never wound up here.
Coach Pavlisco from Miami was standing there. He's like, "Hey, you know, Pete, let me talk to you for a minute." And I mind you, I don't know anything about Miami, but I hate Miami for one reason, because of Ball State. And I don't know why, I've always have. But I remember he said, "Hey, what do you think about coming to University of Miami at Oxford and playing baseball for me?" And I just remember laughing at him, and I just walked away. And I don't know if I ever told PQ that, but it was his fault, because like they hated Miami.
Everything else about Quinn's tenure, though, was about his undying love for his players, his team, and his school.
Coach Quinn is Ball State baseball for many of us who grew up during that time.
He was more than our coach. You know, he was a friend, yes, but he was somebody who really cared for you.
He's added value to my life from those 5 years that I was able to come to Ball State.
PQ created was a special environment where we all felt a connection and felt like family. That doesn't always happen.
We've talked about it here with the Pirates. Our job is to turn boys into men and teach guys what it means to be a pro, which is ultimately who you are and how you go about doing things. And Pat Quinn modeled that and taught me a lot about that.
Even if it meant something for somebody other than BSU.
So, Mayor, we were building a house in Cincinnati, and I said to Pat, "No, I'm just going to stay here and continue to coach." And he's like, "You can't do that. You got a wife, she's pregnant, you're building a house, you can't do that. That's not how you raise a family." So Pat, you know, contacted Miami, Xavier, some other schools around there to try to help me get another job.
I went to Pat and said, "I think I might want to scout." He said, "Take all the time you need, but you've got a job here." He allowed me to go to scout school. He allowed me to start to interview with teams, all while I was recruiting for Ball State. A lot of head coaches in college would have fired me long before that. Others would have said, "Get out now." What Pat did was he said, "You do what's best for you. I know you'll make this work for Ball State."
Which Quinn always did.
Well, he gave his life to Ball State, so he's a true Cardinal. I mean, if you think about 37 years of your life and the amount of hours that, man, I promise you there's not another person at this university, in the history of the university, I'll even go on, I'll say in the history of the university, that logged more hours than Pat Quinn.
I'll never forget when Bubba Cunningham took over as athletic director sometime later. He said to me, he said, I've never seen anything like this Pat Quinn. The guy's, it's unbelievable, you know, what he does, how much he works.
I learned that from my mom and dad. My dad had a strong work ethic. I can never remember him missing a day of work. He said, once you start something, you've got to finish it.
This place is home. It means more to him than a campus or buildings. It's family. I think for the first 3 or 4 years, he'll wake up at his normal 4 in the morning and do his normal stuff, get in the car, drive to the office, and then park and be like, "Damn it, I don't work here anymore."
I never thought he'd retire. I thought he'd stay there a little longer.
Probably wants to spend time with his wife. Grandkids, you know? He's raised enough of us. He raised all of us.
That means a lot to me. Probably more than any game I ever won or any scholarship I ever awarded. The fact that somewhere along the line somebody feels like I helped them out, that means a lot to me. Yeah, I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss it. I'm struggling right now, to be quite honest with you. It's the last couple of weeks have been tough. The next couple will even be tougher. But you know, the time's right. And you know, maybe I did do something worthwhile while I was here.